Your Eminence, let me begin by saying thank you to you. Thank you for welcoming us. But also thank you for letting me carry your crucial. It looks very much like mine. Of course, this is much heavier, even though it is lighter. It is a crucial of a cardinal. So thank you very much. And thank you, my brother bishops, for celebrating to you, brother priests, my brothers and sisters, all of you present. Thank you for this wonderful celebration. And so that I will not forget it, I do it at the beginning. I want to say great thank you to this choir. As I mentioned at the beginning, today we are celebrating also the memorial of the dedication of the Basilica of St. Mary Major, Santa Maria Maggiore. It is one of the 4 patriarchal basilicas in Rome. You know them? The Basilica of John Lateran, which is the cathedral of the Pope. The Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, where we have the remains of St. Paul. The Basilica of St. Peter, where we have the remains of Peter. And now the Basilica of St. Mary Major. Now this Basilica is quite special. Permit me, before I go to talk about the Gospel of today, I just mentioned 3 elements about the Basilica of St. Mary Major. It is the first and the greatest of all the churches dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary in the West. I don't talk about the Eastern region, that is Constantinople and rest, but in the West. And when you speak about this Basilica, it is also very closely related to the feast of Our Lady of the Snow, Madonna Nivis. Why? Because tradition has it that this Basilica was erected on the Esquiline Hills of Rome, following the dream of a Roman couple, Giovanni and his wife. These were wealthy people, and they prayed to the Madonna to give them a sign of what to do for the Lord with their money. And the legend has it that the Blessed Virgin appeared to them in a dream, telling them to build a church on the Esquiline Mountains, where on the 5th of August there would be snow. Now, let me tell you, those who left Rome these days would know that staying in Rome now is like being in an oven. August is the hottest month of Rome. You go from 35 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. So talking about having snow on the Esquiline Mountains in Rome was something unimaginable. But the legend says that the couple did on the 5th of August find snow. It snowed on the Esquiline Mountains. And following that experience, the Pope of the time, Pope Liberius, had a church erected on the place where it snowed in honor of, remember that miracle. This was about the year 352 AD. Why do we know that? Because Pope Liberius was Pope from 352 AD to 366. But the main event came with the promulgation of the dogma of the divine maternity of the Blessed Virgin Mary at the Council of Ephesus in the year 431 AD. When Mary was declared at Ephesus at that council Theotokos, that is, Mother of God. It was celebrated in Ephesus as a great victory against the Nestorians, the heresy of Nestorianism. And that celebration extended to Rome. And so the Pope of the time, Pope Signis III, had the former church in the Esquilin Mountains rebuilt and transformed into a basilica in honor of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It later on came to be called Santa Maria Maggiore, Saint Mary Major. Now, that basilica has always been a place central for the Romans to venerate Our Lady. From the Byzantine times, we have in that basilica an icon of a Blessed Mother that is called Salus Populi Romani, the health of the Roman peoples, or the protector of the Roman peoples. They go there to honor the Blessed Virgin Mary. You know, Pope Francis, when he was Pope, used to go to that basilica to honor our Blessed Virgin Mary whenever he was undertaking a major trip. And on his way back, he always went there to thank the Blessed Virgin Mary. And when he was dying, he wished that his remains be buried in that basilica. And so he is buried there. But that basilica has a special significance for you and for me. I'm going to tell you some story. It is the only basilica I know in Rome that has the remains of an African, a black African. It bears a witness to the fact that the first ambassador to the Holy See, to the Pope, from black Africa was as early as the year 1604. During the time of the Kingdom of Congo. The King of Congo, Alvaro II, named in the year 1604 an ambassador to the Pope, Ambassador Antonio Manuel Mvunda. Of course, people could not pronounce Nvunda, so they used to call him Mvunda. So his name has remained in history as Mvunda. Now, when Ambassador Mvunda was named in 1604, he began to travel to Rome. He first went to Brazil, and then from Brazil to Spain, and then came to Rome. The trip took him 4 years. He was in the high seas. He arrived in Rome on the 3rd of January, 1608. But unfortunately, he had become ill in the high seas. So he arrived in Rome already sick. He died 2 days after his arrival in Rome. Thanks to God, before he arrived, the Pope himself, Pope Paul V, went to his bedside and received his credentials as ambassador. And when he died, the Pope ordered that he should be buried in the Basilica of St. Mary Major with full honors. And that was obeyed. If you go to the Basilica of St. Mary Major, go towards the sacristy of the Basilica. Just opposite the sacristy, you will see the slab covering the tomb of Ambassador Mvunda. Therefore, that Basilica has its importance as a witness to the presence of the Church in Black Africa and the efforts of the kings of Africa to fight the transatlantic slave trade, because King Alvaro II sent him to go and woo and gain the support of Pope Paul V against that slave trade. So Rome is also ours. Now, when I see so many of us getting together, it is a source of encouragement. Let nobody discourage you, because the church is also ours. Permit me to underline the activity. Of course, we're all communicators, but there are people who stay behind the curtains and push the communicators. I want to underline the work that Sister Jane Wakadu and the Hilton Foundation are doing to support all the things we are doing, especially to support the women, the sisters in Africa. Please, when I spoke yesterday about each person joining hands as the team of Nehemiah joined hands, you don't need to be Sister Jane, but I'm sure that from your own little angle, you can also join hands and build up this faith, especially on the African continent. You are going to tell me more. You are speaking too much. You don't want to talk about the readings of today. Now let me talk about the gospel. I'm not able to talk about that major great prophecy from the prophet Jeremiah, but let me talk about this special woman, the Syrophoenician woman that came to Jesus. Amazing woman. Her name is not given. We're only told that she was Canaanite from the Syrophoenician region. So she was a representative of the earliest Gentiles. She is a representative of every woman here present and of every person here coming to the faith, man or woman. She heard that Jesus had come into the region, and she had a need, not for her, but for her daughter. The name of the daughter is not given. We're not even told whether the daughter knew who Jesus was, or whether she believed in Jesus. The focus is on this one and her faith. And she came to Jesus, calling, Son of David, have pity on me. Now look at the reaction of the disciples. Jesus kept quiet. Sometimes in our prayers, God could answer with silence in order to pull out the greater part of our faith from us. And so when Jesus kept quiet, the disciples reacted. Look at their reaction, and that is how quite often we react. They felt she was a pest. She was disturbing them. Master, send her away. She is crying and disturbing us. Send her away. Oh my God. You remember also these same disciples. This is Matthew chapter 15. In Matthew chapter 8 and in chapter 14, verses 14 and 15, we also had the same disciples telling Jesus to send away the crowds. Let them go. It is evening. Let them go to the cities to buy for something to eat. We still have people today who, out of convenience, for one reason or the other, want to send people away. No, this is not a children's play. No, this is not a place for people that are that way or the other way. We want to send people away from Jesus. Watch the reaction of Jesus. First, in Matthew chapter 14, verses 14 and 15, he said, no, don't send them away. Give them something to eat yourselves. No, we have not. Get me what you have. And they gave to Jesus. Jesus presented to the Father and gave back to them. And they were able to give to everybody. Whatever you have, bring to Jesus. let him bless them and give back to you. You will reach those people. Don't send them away. You remember, we have in the Bible one of the few cases where we are told that Jesus got grossly offended with his disciples. You know why? Because the disciples were sending children away. Read the text of Mark chapter 10, verses 13 and 14. Children were being brought to Jesus just for him to impose hands on them. And the disciples, no, keep them away. They do not know Jesus. This is not a child's play. Keep them away. What quite often hear from Protestants today, don't baptize them because they don't yet know Jesus. Keep them away. They don't know Jesus. We're told in verse 14, Jesus was offended. He was indignant. He said, let the children come to me. To those like them belongs the kingdom of heaven. Don't send people away. Of course, we have two types of people. Those who, with their words and their actions and their witness, bring people to Jesus. And those who, with their words, their actions, and their witness, send people away from Jesus. Which one am I? And so this woman came to Jesus and threw herself at the feet of Jesus. Master, have pity on me. My daughter is heavily possessed at home. And Jesus said to her, you don't take the bread of the children and give to dogs. It has been a marketplace here with biblical exegetes. Some say, oh, he was despising the woman and comparing her to dogs because she was not a Canaanite. Earlier he said he was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The first thing I will ask you, I'm not going to give you an answer. Who are the lost sheep of Israel? Are the Gentiles part of the lost sheep of Israel? What does Jesus mean by saying you don't take the food of the children and give to dogs? Of course, in the house, children have a right to the food they receive as children. But you don't take their rights and give to dogs. So mind those people today, those are animals who leave their children and carry their children in cribs and carry their babies, their dogs in the breasts. Jesus was telling the woman the difference between right and privilege. And the woman said, I am satisfied also with the privilege. The dogs also eat from the scraps from the table of their masters. The grace we receive from God is not a question of right. It is a question of privilege we receive from God. And that privilege challenges us to be perseverant like this woman and to be humble. Without perseverance and her humility, this woman got everything she needed. And she became an example to all of us regarding how strong, how effective, what we call the prayer of the third person could be. Do you have a brother, or a sister, or a friend, benefactor, benefactress, who may not even know Jesus, but who is in need? This story is telling us that your own faith, your own prayer could also be the source of grace, reaching that person. And the Lord grant us, each and every one of us, the grace of humility and perseverance in prayer. Amen.